What's up? Welcome to Airlocks and Aviaries. Today we are going to be recapping all of the Mission Impossible films up to Dead Reckoning because you didn't have time to binge them before it hit theaters. Let's get into it. Mission Impossible 1. We meet Ethan Hunt, a dedicated young spy and a member of the Impossible Mission Force, IMF for short, a secret division of the CIA that specializes in unique and sometimes risky methods of getting information. Ethan and the rest of his team, led by Jim Phelps, his boss and mentor, go on a mission to retrieve a list of the true names of all of the IMF agents called the Knock List. Things go a little bit wrong, and Ethan watches as every single member of his team is killed. Ethan finds out that the mission was just a plot by the IMF to find a mole that had infiltrated the agency, and now the IMF suspects he's a traitor because he was the only one who survived. Ethan escapes the IMF and finds out that Jim Phelps' wife, Claire, survived the mission as well. The two follow a lead to find an arms dealer named Max who is working with the mole to buy the knock list. In order to catch the mole, Ethan promises to sell the real knock list to Max on the condition that he will be there. Ethan and Claire recruit two former IMF agents who had been disavowed, a helicopter pilot named Franz Krieger and a highly skilled, highly intelligent hacker named Luther Stickle. They break into the CIA and retrieve the knock list with style. As they're hiding in London, it's revealed that the IMF detained Ethan's parents in order to find him. Ethan makes contact with the director of the IMF and finds out that Phelps survived. Phelps tries to tell Ethan that the director of the IMF is the real mole, but Ethan already knows that Phelps is the mole because of a code name he used and a small detail Ethan had remembered about his former mentor. But Ethan still has to prove that Phelps is the mole to the IMF. So he goes through with the meeting with Max the arms dealer and invites the director of the IMF. Max leaves Ethan a bag of money, while Luther secretly jams the server to prevent Max from downloading the list. As Claire and Jim Phelps try to collect the money, Ethan secretly films them to prove their involvement to the IMF. Phelps murders Claire and tries to escape with the money on a helicopter piloted by Krieger, who betrayed Ethan. But Ethans, and then stops them. Phelps and Krieger are killed, and the IMF arrests the arms dealer Max. Ethan and Luther are both reinstated into the IMF, and Ethan gets a promotion to team leader. Because of course he does. Mission Impossible 2. In this movie, a corrupt company called Biosite Pharmaceuticals forces a biochemist to create a deadly disease and a cure that it will profit from selling. The scientist steals the disease and the antidote and plans to take it to the IMF. But Sean Ambrose, a former agent who had gone rogue, steals the antidote from him, although he doesn't get a sample of the virus. The IMF has Ethan recruit Ambrose's ex-girlfriend Naya and get her to seduce him for the information. She steals a memory stick from him, which contains a video detailing the effects of the disease. Victims can only be saved within 20 hours of infection. Ambrose discovers that Naya is using him, and learns of Ethan's plan to break into the Biosite headquarters, so he's there first and they get into a standoff. Ethan manages to destroy every sample of the virus except one. Ambrose almost retrieves it, but Naya injects herself with it just in time. She wants Ethan to kill her to finally be rid of the virus once and for all, but that would be too easy, and of course Ethan lets her go. Ambrose and his men attempt to sell the virus to make a fortune, but Ethan, with the help of Luther of course, gets there first, stops them, and retrieves the antidote to heal Naya, and they all fly off into the sunset. Mission Impossible 3. Ethan claims he's officially retired and settles down with a nurse named Julia. Except the movie has to happen, so he's called in because an agent he trained was captured by an arms dealer, Davian. He goes in with a rescue mission, but the agent doesn't make it because of an explosive implant that was put into her brain. The agent left behind some information, though, which is decoded by Benji Dunn, IMF technician and Ethan's newfound friend. They find out that Davian is attempting to steal something called the Rabbit's Foot, which is possibly a weapon of mass destruction, and Ethan, Luther, and Benji plan a mission to capture him before he can do it. Before they go on the mission, though, Ethan goes back to his fiancée Julia and makes it official. They get married, and then Ethan leaves to infiltrate the Vatican. They capture Davian, but his mercenaries free him and kidnap Jules. The IMF tries to apprehend Ethan, but he escapes and goes after his missing wife. Davian tells him that he has to get the Rabbit's Foot to him within 48 hours or he's going to kill Julia. Ethan assembles a team, steals the Rabbit's Foot, and travels to Davian to deliver it. Julia is almost killed, Ethan is almost killed by an explosive implant in his head, but he survives, and Julia survives, and Ethan returns to the IMF. But not before going on his honeymoon with Julia, to whom he's explained everything about his risky job. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. This one starts with an assassin killing an agent of the IMF who gets nuclear launch codes and plans to sell them to a mysterious terrorist. Ethan is extracted from a mission he was on in a Russian prison. It's revealed that Benji has passed his exam and is now a fully trained IMF field agent. The first assignment that the team gets is to infiltrate the Kremlin to get information about the terrorists trying to buy the nuclear launch codes. He gets there before them, prevents the team from gathering information, bombs the Kremlin, and blames it all on the IMF. Ethan is arrested by Russian agents, but he escapes. Because of the Kremlin incident, the CIA disavows the entire Impossible mission force. Ethan and his team, which consists of Benji, Agent Carter, and an analyst named Will Brandt, are forced to operate underground. The terrorist who plans to buy the nuclear launch codes sets up a meeting with the assassin. Ethan and his team get there first to intercept them, but the terrorist leaves with the codes despite Ethan's best efforts at running after him really fast. After this all goes down, it's revealed that Brandt was once an agent too, but he stopped working in the field because once he was ordered to protect Ethan and his wife Julia, and after an incident he saw that Julia was killed. He never told Ethan that this is why he stopped being an agent, and Ethan never knew it was Brandt protecting him. Meanwhile, Ethan finds out from an arms dealer that the terrorist will be using nuclear codes on an old military satellite owned by a billionaire in India. Ethan and his team break into the billionaire's computer to stop the codes from being used. They're too late, though, and the terrorists use the codes to launch a missile directly at San Francisco. But of course, Ethan pursues them, kills the terrorists, and stops the missile just in time. Brandt finally tells Ethan the truth about how he feels responsible for Julia, but Ethan reveals that Julia is actually alive and well. The real truth is that they got divorced, and it was all a cover to try and fake Julia's death so she wouldn't be in danger. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. This movie is about Ethan's fight against a terrorist organization of agents that have gone rogue, called the Syndicate. The movie starts out with Ethan intercepting a shipment from the Syndicate, and then later becoming captured by a Syndicate member called Solomon Lane. He escapes with the help of Ilsa Faust, an MI6 agent working undercover. Meanwhile, the director of the CIA, Alan Hunley, due to the chaotic events of the previous film, shuts down the IMF and assimilates all of the agents into the CIA. Benji keeps working for the CIA, but Ethan escapes to track down the Syndicate by himself and becomes a wanted fugitive of the CIA. 6 months later, an on-the-lam Ethan contacts Benji again, and together they attempt to track down Solomon Lane at an assassination attempt of an Austrian chancellor. They run into Ilsa, who turns out to be undercover as a Syndicate agent. They try to prevent the assassination, but are unsuccessful. Ethan and Benji escape, but Ilsa has to rejoin the Syndicate so as to not blow her cover. Benji and Ethan, now being pursued by the CIA, find Ilsa and team up to steal data containing the names of Syndicate members. But Ilsa leaves them, takes the data, and hands it over to the MI6. But, as it turns out, her boss at the MI6, Chief Atlee, is corrupt and deletes the data before it's revealed to anyone. Meanwhile, Luther and Will Brandt have gone rogue as well in order to find and team up with Ethan and Benji. Benji, being the amazing dude that he is, actually made a copy of the data before Ilsa stole it. They inspect it and find that it's a locked file that can only be accessed by the Prime Minister of England. They try to make it to London, but Benji is kidnapped by the Syndicate and used to coerce Ethan into giving them the file. Ethan goes undercover to get the Prime Minister to unlock the file, and also gets the corrupt Chief Atlee to admit that he was the one who started the Syndicate, which was originally an MI6 project that went wrong. Ethan accesses the file and finds that it's a key to get billions of dollars, which Solomon Lane plans to use to fund the Syndicate. Ethan destroys the file after memorizing it all and meets with Lane, who still has Benji hostage, and threatens to kill Benji if Ethan doesn't give him the information on the file. Ethan convinces Lane that the only way to get access to the money is through himself, and forces him to release Benji. Lane pursues Ethan, but Ethan, Ilsa, Benji, and Luther are able to capture him and arrest him. Because of this success, the IMF is restored, and former CIA Director Alan Hunley becomes the director of the IMF. Mission Impossible Fallout. This movie opens by showing us that Ethan is still having nightmares about Julia, feeling responsible for her safety despite the fact that things ended between them. Meanwhile, the Syndicate is back, but this time they're a terrorist organization calling themselves the Apostles, who are working with a dangerous terrorist called John Lark. They are planning to buy black market plutonium to use for, you guessed it, nuclear bombs. Ethan, Benji, and Luther get to the plutonium deal first, hoping to acquire it before the Apostles do. But things go wrong, Luther is held hostage, and Ethan lets the terrorist get away with the plutonium in order to save Luther's life. The Apostles escape, but not before Ethan kidnaps their weapons expert. With the help of Luther and Benji, they manage to trick him into revealing communication methods with John Lark. But because Ethan was a big softy and let the plutonium get away, the CIA doesn't trust him to retrieve it on his own. So they send him a supervising agent, Geralt of August Walker. Together, the very tense duo finds a man that they think is John Lark in order to assume his identity with a mask and intercept the second plutonium deal with someone called the White Widow. But things go wrong once again, and Ethan and Walker get into trouble with their John Lark suspect, unable to fight him off. Ilsa Faust shows up and kills him in order to protect Ethan. Ethan is forced to intercept the meeting with the White Widow with no disguise as himself, posing as John Lark. Meanwhile, August Walker, who was previously thought to be a loyal agent, frames Ethan as the real John Lark to the CIA. Ethan goes through with the meeting as John Lark, and in a strange twist of fate and surprising turn of events, the White Widow will only give the plutonium cores to John Lark if he is able to acquire Solomon Lane out of custody. You know, from the last movie, the very terrorist that Ethan and his team worked so hard to get arrested. But the terrorists getting their hands on plutonium would be bad, so with the help of Benji and Luther, Ethan secures Solomon Lane. IMF director Alan Hunley shows up to stop them, since the CIA thinks that Ethan is John Lark. But before he can, they trick August Walker into admitting that he is the real John Lark, and the previous person who they had thought John Lark was just a ploy. They try to secure him, but he kills Alan Hunley and escapes, with Solomon Lane. Ilsa, Benji, Luther, and Ethan track them down to discover that they're at a medical camp in a glacier, planning to detonate the bombs there with the plutonium and contaminate the water supply of 1/3 of the world's population. To add icing onto the cake, the terrorists also chose the medical camp that Ethan's ex-wife, Julia, and her new husband were stationed at. Ethan's again, and disarms the bombs, kills John Lark, saves his ex-wife and his friends and 1/3 of the world, and lands himself in the hospital again. Solomon Lane is captured and sent back to the MI6, Ilsa is exonerated, and Ethan and his team are heroes. Well, there you have it, folks. The basic plot of all 6 Mission Impossible movies. So now you can go in and watch the new one without worrying about what you missed, or what you forgot, or what you didn't bother to watch. Go have fun. Happy Dead Reckoning Month. Oh, and for my Mission Impossible Discord friends, I love you. You all are amazing. Alright, that's it for the video. Have a lovely time watching Dead Reckoning, and remember, you are valid.